the young men who are being recruited into these organizations?
I'm sorry, I didn't get, Would you please?
I say there are 3 reasons one might join, a young man might join these organizations. One is the family tradition. His father was in the organization. No, a young man. Young man.
Yeah,
thinking about joining the police after that.
Yes.
He has 3 possible motivations.
Yes.
One, his family has done this. His uncle, his father. 2, he actually believes it. We say he drank the Kool-Aid. He's actually a fanatic himself. Or 3, he has opportunities to make money. Many opportunities to make money from his position in the security apparatus. So those are 3 major motivations for joining these organizations. Which of those do you think might be the most important?
Making money. Because this sometimes these siblings of the security guys they join these organizations, but it is not common. It is not that much common. So I should say that to have a better job, to have a better living, they join this organization.
Well, since yes, sir, please in the back.
Mr. Gause, thank you very much for writing the book. It's going to contribute a lot to the scholarship. I had a question about the time, when the time comes that the Kim regime collapses, what policies are in effect by the United States government, the South Korean government, to protect the people in the prison camps?
I would leave that to one of these other panels. I don't know what the planning would be. I suspect that there would be some planning that is part of our establishing a footprint up north that would involve, seeking out and securing the prisons, or there is a possibility that some of these people could be let out during the process of the collapse, and but having to deal with the humanitarian crisis that is most likely going to be facing our forces and the South Korean forces and even the Chinese forces as we go into that country is going to be quite daunting. Whether there are specific plans in place for dealing with the prison system, unfortunately, I just don't know.
Chattel Carroll.
Hi there. As you may know, we're live streaming the event today, and we have a question from one of our Twitter followers for you, Mr. Gause. And it's, does Ri Yong-ho's removal indicate greater party control over the military, and what was Ri Yong-ho's position on North Korea's direction?
Again, this is something that is highly speculative, but it is something that the Pyongyang watching community is watching very closely. My own personal view is that Ri Yong-ho, extreme hardliner, somebody that was a very strong supporter of the military first policy. I think he got crosswise with the direction that Kim Jong-un and his supporters, primarily Chung Son-taek, Chae Lang-hae, Kim Jong-hui, are trying to take this regime, which I think part of it is to try to deal with some of the issues that they're dealing with in terms of the dilapidated economy and that they're looking for a way of recalibrating some of their policies. I believe that if you were to look at some of the Kim Jong-un statements along these lines to suggest the possibility of no longer belt tightening in North Korea, which I think is code word for the military first policy, I think that probably got him crosswise with elements of the high command. And I believe that this removing Ri Yong-ho and replacing it with Hyun Yong-chol, which is the former commander of the 8th Corps and somebody whose political credentials within this regime are very weak compared to Ri Yong-ho, that this gives him a lot more latitude, and Chung Son-taek, his advisor and his advisors, a lot more latitude to carry out some of these policy changes.
Yes, please.
Daily NK that there was a first peasant uprising after people sent like balloon leaflets into North Korea after the fall of Egypt and all of that. And so I'm wondering, what does that mean, I guess, for the country? Is that just a glitch, do you think, or do you think it means more?
Well, I am not one who believes very strongly that you're going to see an Arab Spring in North Korea. I just don't believe that that is in the culture of a country who has essentially been under the boot now for almost 100 years. Going back to the time in which Japan occupied parts of Korea. I believe that very strongly in the notion that Andrei Lankoff holds out there, which is that information is seeping into the regime, and as more of this information that can seep in is going to position, I think, the population to better deal with when the eventual collapse comes. But to think that this regime is just going to, that this population is going to rise up in major numbers, like we were seeing in Egypt, or we're seeing in Syria or Libya and places like that. I think that that's a completely different culture, a different social network and social structure that would allow that, a different type of regime that doesn't have the lockdown power that the internal security and apparatus in North Korea does. So I just really don't think you're going to see it. But I think that you will see some disturbances, especially around the markets. There was a lot of pushback when the regime tried to crack down on the markets, and I think that is something that really caught the regime's attention. I frankly just don't, I think they are struggling with trying to figure out how to deal with the situation of information management, which is becoming more proliferating throughout the country, and I think that it's going to continue, and I think that that's something that they're trying to struggle with how to deal with it.
The final question will be Chris Nelson's.
Thanks. Chris Nelson, Nelson Report. Ken, thanks so much for a great report, and thanks for repeatedly reminding us all that Andrei Lankoff has talked about this stuff for years. As you know, I quote him all the time, and once you talk to Andrei, you have to love the guy. Let's ask that same question in reverse. If it's simply not possible because of the security apparatus to expect an Arab Spring, a bottom-up, then the chances for a change that is not simply a collapse is top-down, and which means, in a sense, the Burma model, if we're going to look at Asia, and people like my son Anthony, who's at the Business Council, tell me one of the impetuses for Burma was the more their diplomats got out and around, the more their senior military guys got around to traveling, they realized, oh my God, we are really falling behind. Is it too soon to be thinking that there might be an element of that in this new leadership cadre that's surrounding the boy wonder? He himself must have learned something in Switzerland, or what's your take on a top-down, because they've actually seen a bit of the world now? Thanks.
I think there are two things. One, in terms of the widespread travel of senior North Korean officials abroad, that's still held in fairly close check. You saw much more of this during the Kim Il-sung period, when you would have people being educated in Eastern Europe and places like that, and bringing back knowledge then than you would see now, and definitely not under Kim Jong-il, and definitely we haven't seen it yet. That being said, I think that there is more informational awareness now in the senior leadership than there has been in a long time. I think that the information is getting in. And the interesting thing, the way that this regime is constructed, which really started under Kim Jong-il, and actually is through Kim Jong-il's heir apparent stage, which was really the late 70s up into 94, is creating a system that is in competition with itself, where you essentially have various institutions and individuals that are essentially leveraging off against each other and keeping each other off balance, so that you have the supreme leader that is able to really kind of control and manipulate things. Well, the question comes then, what happens when that center becomes weakened somewhat, either by the removal of a linchpin such as Kim Jong-il, or these tensions start to grow up amongst these various stakeholders within the regime. I think that there is a potential for having tension at the top, and if I were to kind of come up with a scenario on how you could have a collapse, I see it as being a top-down as opposed to a bottom-up phenomenon.
Thank you, And before I conclude, I did not want to put him on the spot because I know that he doesn't really appreciate the attention, but Shin Dong-hyuk is here with us today. Many of you may have noticed he is the hero of Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. If you haven't read this book yet, I definitely highly recommended it. It's playing a tremendous role as far as the North Korean human rights movement is concerned. Before we conclude, I would like to thank all of you for following us so thoroughly. This wouldn't be possible without having you attend all of these North Korean human rights events. Please do continue to follow us. Please do check out our website, hrnk.org. All of our publications are available there. I would like to thank Dr. Abraham Kim, KEI, Linda Kim, and the others, the KEI interns whose names I no longer know since I've been away for 1 year. All of the interns that Chuck Downs has mentioned, and also all of the interns who are credited for their contributions in our report, and all those HRNK interns who have